Hello there, my name is Heath Mitchell, and I will be covering a BBC article from last month on the topic of new regulatory laws overseeing universities in the United Kingdom revolving around the freedom of speech. Now, to start, the Office for Students, which is a regulatory body which oversees universities in the United Kingdom, recently passed new guidelines in accordance to a law that is being passed, which will officially go into place in August within England, which focuses on protecting freedom of speech within all grounds of life, but these guidelines, specifically from the OFS, affect universities, of course. And some of the main critics of these new guidelines have come from the NUS UK, or the National Union of Students in the UK, of which the president claimed that universities and student unions already have a good handling on freedom of speech, and that the OFS's priorities were essentially in the wrong place and weren't emphasizing a need to help marginalized students, you could say. And many universities have argued against the OFS and have requested further clarity on these guidelines, especially after the University of Sussex had been fined over £500,000 for infringing on an individual's freedom of speech. The University of Sussex also began a legal process arguing against the fine, claiming that the investigation process was flawed, and the OFS responded to this, ensuring that they would provide further clarification as to all of the different situations, essentially, that could revolve around these new guidelines, creating a list of 54 unique scenarios, which I'm sure will likely be added on to. Anyway, the goal of this new law is essentially to ensure that all forms of freedom of speech are protected on campus, including, protests, teaching, debating, just all in the goal of not having anybody feel as if they can't speak their mind, regardless of how offensive their opinion may be. And I would assume a lot of these new guidelines are being inspired off of what's occurring on American universities, especially in light of the Israel-Palestine protests that were going on throughout the last year. Now, Dr. Ahmed, who's one of the leading members of the OFS, argued that, quote, "You should expect to face views you might find shocking or offensive, and that you should be aware that's part of the process of education," end quote. Now, one point of note on that is Holocaust denial was noted as not a form of protected speech. So, in reference to said Israel-Palestine stuff, not everything would be allowed. But that's also pretty similar to what goes on here in the U.S., and at least in some states. Now, some of the main critics of this law and subsequent guidelines seem to, generally take a far more emotional approach when arguing against it. A lot of, the claims that were used in this article specifically really just wanted to, avoid offense, and we're saying you shouldn't have to express your opinion and offend somebody at the same time, which isn't necessarily true because anybody could be offended by anything. Now, to continue, responding to the critics, Ahmed says that according to their polling, 1 in 5 academics, including students and professors, don't feel comfortable discussing controversial opinions or other potentially offensive topics, and that that the OFS would no longer allow professors to be fired over the expression of their own views if they were to hypothetically offend a student. Now, this isn't to say students wouldn't be allowed to issue complaints, and the OFS has opened up a new office specifically for students to issue complaints. However, I think the real goal of this is to allow a more open environment for speech and essentially alleviate the feeling of some people having to feel as if they're walking on ice around others. And generally, My overall opinion on this is, as a very pro freedom of speech person that thinks there's essentially no speech that should be banned, this is just, I think, essentially a good first step for the UK. The UK has been dealing with a lot of censorship issues over the past 5 to 8 years, roughly. More people have been locked up in the UK than even Russia over online posts being deemed offensive. So, having family and friends over there, I feel very connected to the issue at hand. And this issue is more broadly affecting the rest of Western Europe as well. It's not just the United Kingdom, but I think the UK is on the forefront of tackling these freedom of speech issues. Thank you.